Hey everybody, welcome to In Step with God. My name is JT Martin, and in today's video, we're going to be looking at one of the lesser known sects of Jewish religious thought and Jewish culture during the first century. Specifically, we're going to be looking at, who the Essenes were. Were they a singular movement? Did they have different components? We're going to be looking at a couple of different pieces of information about these guys today. And I just want to, again, just a small reminder about what this channel is about. This is about, looking at the academic information so we can learn about where Christianity comes from, how it evolved over time, and what the best and worst moments were over the course of that expansive history. Just another small reminder, if you're new to the channel, please feel free to click the subscription button and click on the notification bell so you know when new videos are dropped. So again, we're looking at the Essenes today. And so there's a couple of questions that we want to make sure we cover. Who were they? How long were they around? And what was their short and long-term impact on Judaism and Christianity? And so to address that first topic, who were they? The Essenes were made up of relatively isolated communities throughout the province of Judea that oftentimes lived, an ascetic lifestyle. Asceticism is this like willful, lack of material things. Ascetic lifestyles, typically think of like the Buddhist monk or a Christian friar from the Middle Ages. It's in general, they were more monastic communities. And so within that, they were oftentimes willfully poor. They chose to be poor, and they shared everything communally. And so that is a really important aspect because it means that they would have cared more about their reputation as a general group than they would have cared about individual personal reputations. This is relatively common throughout most communal groups and societies. And so some members, lived in nearby cities, and they mostly, most of their contribution came in the form of financial support for the community when it was needed. And so that's who they were. They were ascetic monastic communities who endured willful poverty and had a very communal sense of living and congregation. Next, we're going to look at, how long were they around? How long were the Essenes around, and how long were they on the picture? So the Essenes flourished from about the 2nd century BCE to the end of the 1st century CE, and they were responsible for the collecting of what scholars now refer to as the Dead Sea Scrolls. These were uncovered in the late 20th century, mid to late 20th century, and they provided a lot of information about the history of the Bible and how long certain versions of the different books had been in print and in circulation amongst different religious communities. And so some scholars claim that the Essenes were theologically descended from one of the high priests mentioned in the Old Testament / Tanakh named Zadok, who served during the reign of Solomon, who was David's son. While being significantly smaller, the Essenes, while being significantly smaller than the Sadducees and Pharisees, who I will be talking about in other videos like this one, they were still a very large community and religious sect within the time that Jesus was born and his adolescence and ministry. and continued to grow and eventually decline over the course of Jesus's life and the rest of the first century. Based on this information, some scholars, such as Gerd Tyson, infer that some populations of the Jewish culture would have assumed Jesus to be a teacher from the Essene community based on his teachings regarding the relationship between wealth and righteousness. Some key passages are, when Jesus talks about the wealthy man going to hell and it is impossible, it is impossible for a rich man to go to heaven and things like that. And the comparison to a wealthy man getting into heaven like a camel going through the eye of a needle, things like that. And so Jesus would have been seen by some parts of the community as an Essene. And so in short term, their impact resembled modern day isolationist Christians who cut themselves off from the world to prevent themselves from being corrupted. In the vast expanse of history, the Essenes' biggest contribution to the Jewish and Christian peoples were the Dead Sea Scrolls, despite the fact that the scrolls were only discovered in the mid-20th century CE. One thing I want to, kind of address is that isolationism in Christianity is very dangerous. The motivation behind it, while being sometimes from a good place, it's actually counterproductive to the mission of a Christian. So I do want to acknowledge that and address it. I recognize that this video is a lot shorter than the others that have come out. I just want you to know that, the videos are going to have differing lengths. So I'm going to have some longer videos like the intro and the political and cultural world of Jesus's birth. And then there's going to be short ones that are targeted towards very specific information, like this one here, and the ones that are going to follow on different religious communities at the time of Jesus. Thank you so much for supporting me and just encouraging me. If you're new to the channel or if you've been keeping up with me, please consider supporting me on Patreon. You can support me with as little as $1 a month, and that helps me to pay for my own domain for my blog and be able to reach more people with what I'm doing. Thank you so much. Again, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and I'll see you next time. God bless.